It is now 9 minutes after the hour, and like I did say to you earlier on, we are ready for House Guest Thursday's edition, the 20th day of March 2025. With me is Mr. Deterville. It's a pleasure to have you grace us here with your presence. Our first encounter, definitely. I know we've had discuss over the phone, but it's a pleasure for actually being here in the flesh. Good morning to you. Good morning, Soufriere, as
Good
well.
morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Appreciate the invite. This is actually at my second time at Soufriere Radio, but it's good to be here. I was here with Miss Bodge, met at first, so it's good to be here. On a different program. Hope the day has been going blessed. Looking forward to this discussion today for sure.
Definitely. I also look forward to having that discourse with you. You indicated that you were here earlier on. For persons who were not able to have maybe grasp whatever the discussion was, or maybe just a refresher for them.
Of course.
A little about who you are, sir.
Okay. My name is Nathan Deterville. I am the Social Transformation Officer responsible for Soufriere and Choiseul. We are attached to the ministry. Well, I am attached to the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, and Empowerment. I'm originally from Ancillary. I spent a few years overseas and so on, but St. Lucia is my home. That's where my heart is. And I'm happy to be here in Soufriere because it's a community that's sort of like my community, a coastal community, and has a lot of the same demographics and characteristics, but it's definitely unique. So I appreciate it, and the reception so far has been beautiful. So thank you for welcoming me and having me in your community.
Thank you so much for that. If I'm correct, your role focuses more on addressing social issues and promoting inclusivity, implementing initiatives, the overall enhancement of communities. As it speaks to, in terms of Soufriere, I know it can be a bit challenging, for sure.
Right.
What have you been able to discover in terms of your research, and what strategies you definitely think that you need to apply?
Well, I don't want to be sort of presumptuous and make suggestions or recommendations so early into my tenure. It's just been about perhaps like 2 months I've been really on the ground. So this part of my what I'm undertaking at this point is really getting to know the communities. As you can imagine, Soufriere to Choiseul, my jurisdiction extends from PI to Bouton. So as you can imagine, that's a very vast territory geographically. So what I've been doing since has been going to the different communities, introducing myself to the different key persons in the communities, organizations, your schools, your different government satellite offices and extension offices, community, just because these people are already from in the community, they've been working in the community, and I have to collaborate closely with them to assess the needs of the community in different scopes, basically. So you have your education, you have your economic issues, your social issues, and so basically I've been gathering information. I've been in the introductory stage, gathering information and stuff, so that I can make assessments and figure out, what needs the community has and so on. So like I say, it might be a bit too early in my tenure to actually make concrete recommendations. But so far, I've been collaborating with Soufriere Development Foundation, and obviously Mr. Saltibus and the staff over there have been, very accommodating in terms of assessing programs, because we don't want to come in and actually and reinvent the wheel. So the Soufriere Development Foundation has been doing a good job so far. People management and so on. So interacting with these people has given me the opportunity, like I say, to view the community from different sort of lenses, and it will put me in the position to be able to now make recommendations and so on in the community. Right? But like you said, like you clearly stated, and you rightly stated, our mandate involves development, and it includes both social, economic, and development, and even environmental concerns. Stuff with disaster relief management and these kind of things, mitigation. So like I say, it's early, and I am looking forward to working with everybody, and that's why I like opportunities like that where I could connect with the community and they know my mission and know that collaboration is an integral part of it.
I'm really happy you spoke about stakeholder engagement.
Right,
In terms of Choiseul, how has that been for you? Because for us in Soufriere, definitely we have the Soufriere Regional Development Foundation and
Right,
the PMA, and we have the
right.
backing of other strong
Definitely.
entities as well. But
Mhm.
then, in terms of Choiseul in comparison, what really works for you here?
In Choiseul, interestingly enough, I mean, with Soufriere, you find a lot of, especially in the town, seeing that it's centralized, and a lot of the, I mean, the communities around it are pretty close in terms of the geographical distribution. With Choiseul, the, like you mentioned, it's the challenges in terms of the vastness of the territory, the, where the actual communities and so on are located, the topography and all these kind of things. It provides challenges, but I was lucky enough and blessed, I should say. Was one of my initial introductions in Choiseul was actually at the after school programs that actually run under Ministry of Equity. And I got to meet the principal of the school, Mrs. Spear. I actually met one of our ex-community development officers. He's retired because that was actually the name of my position prior to it being the social transformation officer. So I got to meet Mr. MacArthur Philippi, who is a community activist. I mean, he's an all-rounder basically, right? So he was able to sort of get my feet wet in terms of who I should collaborate with in Choiseul. I'm actually sort of an X Factor member of the Choiseul Jazz and Arts Development Committee, recently. So I have been I've been mixing and I have been mingling, like they say, and getting acquainted with the Miss Philomene Lafrey as well, and other people from the community. Like I say, key people have been getting me into the hearts of the people, and sort of give me an idea of what the Choiseul situation is and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, Mr. MacArthur Philip has been great. He's instrumental, and he's a community activist, and his reach in the community is very apparent, and his regard in the community. He has high regard in that community. So it's good to have sort of people like that to ease me in, like I say, and break the ice.
Which is true. And speaking about Mr. McGuffin, there is also Mr. Brian Charles as well, who has the vast knowledge.
Yes.
And I think he was the mayor, if it's
Right, right.
as far as Choiseul is concerned.
Right.
As you rightfully say, in terms of the topography,
Mhm.
and if you have to look at other challenges as well, but in any and everything else, maybe you can outline the work plan you have, as well.
Right. Well, one of the initial things that we are getting into is community profiles of the community, right? So what we'll do is separate the community in segments and sub communities, and what the community profile involves is actually just sort of getting an idea of what obtains in the community in terms of your wellness centers, your schools, your your recreational grounds, and these are kind of things. Just little aspects of the community that we can use now in future, for future reference and future considerations, and when we are actually implementing programs. Right. One of the programs that we have currently running is the after school programs, which caters to kids, I think up to is it grade 5, right? And what the after school program does, it caters to kids who don't have supervision after school, because there are a lot of households, especially single parent households, where there is no supervision when the kids actually leave school between the hours, usually 3:30 to when the parents get home. So this is one of the functions of the after school program, and it caters to not only, but it caters to at-risk and underprivileged kids as well. There's an element of it which the kids actually get fed in the program, and there's a psychosocial aspect where the youth can be referenced to counselors and so on, depending on certain attitudes and certain traumatic sort of experiences. If they've been through certain traumatic experiences which cause, have psychological implications, the facilitators could actually refer them to counselors and so on. So these are one of the programs that are currently running. I am looking to expand, because there are other schools who have indicated their interest in having after school programs, especially in the Choiseul area. There's a program that's running at the Reunion School. Like we mentioned, again, the geographical distribution and the topography, transportation, they're not necessarily able to, not everybody who would benefit from the program is not actually able to access it because of those issues. So, one of the ideas that we have is perhaps to look into starting another program that is maybe more centralized in the areas like the Roblo and Delse and Lamaz, these kind of areas that could could cater to these areas. Another thing that we're looking to, one other idea that we have, there's the PAP program, which caters to underprivileged persons, right? but there's unfortunately a waiting list, and that is one of the things that a lot of the questions that we're getting in the communities when it comes to those programs. People are wondering why. I mean, you have people waiting for assistance, they're in dire situations, but there's a backlog, so naturally there's frustration. And I know a lot of people come to, I mean, our welfare offices and so on, frustrated. But um to be honest, a lot of the times it's actually out of their hands, because after the assessment process, there, like I said, there is a waiting period and there is a backlog and a waiting list. So one of the things that we are discussing is that people who are actually on those lists, while they're waiting, there's a saying. I don't remember exactly who said it, but they're saying, while the hay is growing, the cattle is starving. So it's a situation where while you are getting things in place to cater to these people, they are still in dire situations. So we are looking to probably institute one or two programs so these people can get sort of basic needs assistance until they can get into the program and this kind of thing. Another thing I'm looking into is perhaps youth mentorship, because youth is, the old adage, youth are the future, right? And a lot of problems start from youth. A lot of sort of traumatic issues start from youth and permeate into their adult life, right? Eric Erickson is this developmental psychologist. His developmental theory, he'll tell you that the ages of 12 to 16 are crucial years in the development of self and forming an identity and so on, and for youth wanting to identify with the groups. So it's imperative that they're given the opportunities to identify with positive mentors and positive programs, that could catalyze, socioeconomic development and social development and so on, as opposed to being exposed to just negative influences, right? So these are the ideas. This is sort of the ethos and the nucleus of our sort of modus operandi, in terms of empowerment and this kind of thing. We want to target the youth, obviously displaced people, the elderly, and anybody, like I say, who are experiencing any sort of social maladjustment, or, we can't do everything as social transformation officers, but an important part of our job is networking. So if we can't do it, we try to sort of we try to refer people and network and go to the agencies and organizations that would be able to help.
Definitely. And I strongly agree with you in terms of the youth, because it's
Right.
a ticket situation. We really
Right.
see what society has become.
Mhm.
So if those programs are implemented, definitely it can curb, especially with the violence.
No doubt.
And
No
bring
doubt.
some sort of resolution to the community, to homes and stuff.
For sure.
Even from the grassroots level as well,
Mhm.
to bring some sort of semblance.
Right.
A lot of the times we say the social transformation officer, they're not doing the job.
Right.
The parents are not doing the jobs, the
Mhm.
community, but then the onus falls on the children as well too,
Mhm.
because a lot of the times the programs are being implemented,
Mhm.
but who really comes in?
Right. Right.
The continuous appeal that is being made, sometimes
Mhm.
it falls on deaf ears.
Mhm.
And this is where you have to look at monitoring and evaluation.
Right.
Who really comes in to monitor this program?
Those programs. Well, the programs that are instituted by us, I mean, in the implementation plans, part of the plans are actually a monitoring and evaluation, because you have objectives and you have indicators that would that would indicate whether the program is being successful or not, or whether it's achieving its objectives. So part of every project would include a monitoring and evaluation plan, who's usually done in the most part either by the funding agency or the supporting agency. It's usually done by the. So if in our case, like the after school programs would be the onus of monitoring and evaluation would be our ministry, right? You did make one of the points that you made in terms of evaluation, the longevity and the sustainability about these programs, and I do agree. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying from our ministry, but even experiencing programs in the past, even from different donors, these programs are implemented and there's no follow-up. There's no follow-up to see if the program is actually performing in the way that it's supposed to, and there's no sort of analysis to figure out what the strengths, the weaknesses, and these kind of things are. So that is the downfall and a lot of these programs, why they don't have the longevity and the effect that they're supposed to have. Another thing too, like you said, these programs exist and a lot of people don't know about it. So perhaps, and that might be why they're underutilized a lot of the times, because I've been speaking like Mr. Saltibus and different people from the community who, like Soufriere Development Foundation, who do have a lot of programs, even the SSDF which is why I asked. One of the things that I asked about is to get the information from these organizations of all the programs that are offered, and then I'll sit down and decide, like I say, after assessments, what sort of programs would be relevant to Soufriere in terms of the needs, addressing the needs and so on, and see if we could, first of all, because they already exist, I mean, start some sensitization campaigns, communication drives, and so on. Because, like I say, sometimes people just don't know. The communication efforts might not have been necessarily the best or the most, and achieve the outreach that they wanted to achieve. So that perhaps is, like I mentioned earlier, not reinventing the wheel. Instead of starting new programs and having to go through the process again, perhaps one of our approaches is to actually appraise people as to the existence of these programs, and see if we can mobilize people to access them.
Which is true. And
Am I
also,
right?
maybe just clarification purposes,
Mhm.
data-driven decisions, I mean, for
Right.
university
Of
programs
course.
as
Of
well.
course. Of course.
So there is always going back to the drawing board to
Hmm.
see the areas that need to be improved,
Right. Right.
making it better, enhancing it, and bringing more people on board
Hmm.
as well that can enable a successful execution of such.
Definitely, definitely. That's why I mentioned the need for periodical analysis. And like you said, monitoring and evaluation. I mean, you have different types of analysis that could tell you how your organization is doing, how the program is doing, and I mean, once those are done periodically, the stakeholders can come together and address it and mitigate when necessary.
Definitely. And we know everything doesn't run smoothly
Hmm.
without having some
Of
challenges.
course not. Of course not.
You don't mind sharing with us what your day to day sometimes you would have to navigate?
Well, like we spoke about the vastness of the region, and to be honest, I have a different mindset when it actually comes to challenges. Challenges excite me. Challenges for me are opportunities to come up with novel and innovative approaches that I've never, because obviously if a challenge exists, that means it hasn't been addressed, and you have to find ways to address it. So it actually brings new ideas and new, like I say, innovative approaches to things that exist. So I don't come to work expecting not to get challenges, and actually challenges are a big part of what drives me and what catalyzes me. So to separate challenges from my actual work, to identify specific challenges from what I actually do on a day-to-day basis, um, that might be sort of difficult, because like I say, I identify challenges as part of my daily work plan. The only issue that I really have right now, and perhaps and it's not an issue. Like I said, I've been working with it since it's been a few months on the ground, and we're trying to negotiate for some office space. That's the only sort of issue I have. Like, if people need to visit me, I don't have a location that I'm at every day. So sometimes I would share the SSDF office with my other colleagues, the equity workers from equity over there. And I mean, depending on where sometimes I would actually be at the DEO office, but I'm always in the community, right? So I find ways to navigate that. So it's not, like I said, I don't make it a big issue. And actually, it's our job is in the field. Obviously, sometimes we need to do certain administrative work at the desk, but more often than not, I don't even notice that I don't actually have an office space, because my office space is the communities. So that's the only thing I would really identify as a challenge. But other than that, it's been, like I say, my challenges are opportunities for growth. You know.
Too oftentimes, I think persons tend to not comprehend between the social transformation office and the social worker.
Ah, okay. The social worker, yes, definitely so. You see, I think the confusion lies in the fact that we're from the same ministry. We fall on the equity umbrella. And a lot of roles, I mean, a lot of our concerns are the same. A lot of our goals are the same. And the ministry's general, like I said, the ministry's general ethos is development and empowerment, right? And support for vulnerable groups and what have you. But what the social worker does, the social worker works on more of a case by case basis, right? So they would visit families. They would have more sort of. I mean, obviously, we would have one-on-ones as social transformation officers and so on. But we are more concerned with the general community development and then empowerment. So the social worker would work more one-on-one with families, right? So for example, if I'm a community development officer and I'm in the community, doing my assessments and working with the people, working with organizations, because we work with NGOs and so on as part of our, as part of developmental efforts. What I would do if I notice that there's somebody who requires the assistance where this a welfare officer might be specialized in, I would actually refer them, right? But our roles, like I say, with the welfare officer, they work more one-on-one. They work on case by case basis, and they work with families and so on more intimately than it's the community development, the social transformation officer would. All right, and we it's well, I was joking. We were speaking the other day, and it's like we were saying that the social transformation officer has to sort of be flexible and multifaceted, right? There are a lot of people that, like we said earlier, a lot of people do not know where to go for help and assistance, and you can't just tell people, well, I'm here to help the community, I'm here to assist in community development, but you can't tell them, myself, I don't know if they ask you a question, that kind of thing. So that's the that is the predicament. That's not a predicament. I mean, that is the nature of our job. Like I say, we don't have our specific rule. We under a broad umbrella of development and empowerment, but these roles and these the roles and the actual work on the ground can change depending on what the situation is. So that is sort of the differences between a welfare officer. Like I said, a welfare officer would have more intimate relationships and with the clients and so on, because they do support for. I mean, you can understand that a lot of the issues that the welfare officers do address are, they're supposed to employ high confidentiality because it is a lot of personal issues, with families and these kind of things. So that is some of the basic differences between us. But like I say, we're from the same department. So at the end of the day, under the umbrella, the mission of the ministry is the same regardless. You understand? But these are the basic differences.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
10:30 a.m. It's a for St. Lucia and the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. It has been a great discussion thus far. Thank you for sharing, such clarity. Something else as well. When we look at the whole scope of a transformation officer, the depth, we also have to ensure that this individual is of their well-being, is in check as well, so
right.
mentally,
Definitely.
Especially if it has to deal with vulnerable families as well. For you, such situations, how do you put a handle on that?
Like I said,
you have to be sympathetic,
right? Of course, compassion is one of. I mean, that is sort of, like I say, one of the nucleuses of how we operate. You have to be compassionate towards community. It's interesting that you mentioned that. I was speaking to a colleague of mine yesterday who was so distraught because she has visited a family, and one of the family members had cancer, and it's at an advanced stage. And you could see she was shaken. It was a traumatic, because you have these things, but when you're actually on the ground and working with the people and you get to hear their stories, it's not just a passerby that's just seeing somebody in a derelict house or looking sick. You actually get to be with these people and hear the stories. And when you hear the stories, I mean, we human beings, and we react to that. And one of the things that a lot of times when we're in the industry where we help people, especially when it comes to wellness and empowerment, like I said, the vulnerable families, you experience those things on a daily basis, and sometimes you don't even realize the effect that it has on you.
So what is being put in place?
Right? I mean, it is part of self-reflection is a big part of the way that I operate, and it's encouraged, especially when you're in you're helping people. And so you have to do a lot of self-reflection and be honest with yourself. You can't just be brushing off. If your body gives you signs, your mind gives you signs, your emotions give you signs. You have to also be self-aware, because you can't be helping people to be self-aware and you're not aware of yourself. So this is one of the things that we employ. I mean, as much as there might not be any formal structure in place, I was talking to a psychologist friend of mine, and he was saying, "Boy, psychologists need psychologists because sometimes we spend weeks, internalizing these people's issues and so on, and we need a salve ourselves. We need to check on our own mental health ourselves. So it's good that you actually mentioned that. A lot of times, like I say, you just have to be self-aware. You know what is you, and you know what is not you, and you know when you are functioning optimally, when your body is homogized, and so on. You know when um when you know what's not you, like I said, when you're falling off mentally, physically, and everything. And it's just important. Self-awareness is important because, if you don't do it for yourself, like I say, nobody will do it for you.
It's true.
That's the thing.
Absorbing from that as well, not just the self-awareness, but then a lot of people do not want to take that home in terms of the spiritual aspect of it.
This, even spiritually, I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in God, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for God. Right, I would not be where I am today. I don't know if you might know my family. Petronilla Deterville is my mom. She was a cultural activist, community activist. And a musician. Right, she used to be curriculum officer for music, and she worked with the youth and stuff. My brother, actually, Johan Deterville, actually just won the Grammy with his production on Chris Brown's album. So we've been in community service from young. We used to do music classes with the youth, and all these kind of things. So this is definitely not new to me, but it's like I tell you, it's always been I've always aspired to be able to be in a situation professionally, to be able to help communities and these kind of things. And like I say, the challenges, everything will come with challenges. It can be overbearing sometimes. So it's important for me to have that sort of spiritual grounding, to know that, okay, when I can't do it myself, there's somebody else, will take it the rest of the way. So that is one of the things that helps me mentally, emotionally, and so on, having that sort of spiritual grounding. That brings peace, because you have to be stoic and maintain peace sometimes in the midst of chaos, stoicity. Right.
Let's just take for now Sheldon Lionel. Good morning to you. Thank you so much. We have Melanie Hippolyte. Blessings. Welcome to Soufriere. Looking forward to making things happen. Cheers.
Yes. Good morning, Mrs. Hippolyte. Good morning, Miss Hippolyte. Sorry, Miss Hippolyte has been very good to me since I've been down here and so on, and I appreciate her welcome.
That's where the love and support comes in.
Yes.
We cannot do it. No man is an island.
No, definitely not. And definitely in terms of our role of SDOs, like I say, it's crucial that we work with persons from the community and organization. That's why we part of our mandate is to get organizations and NGOs started and registered and recognized, so that sort of gives us an omnipresence, because like you say, we can't be everywhere every time. But through collaborative efforts, work can be done in the places that you're not necessarily present at the time,
Which is true.
Yes.
I'm putting you on the spot a little. Given the scope of things on the ground, what can you attest to? Do you think a lot of the impoverished communities are really getting the necessary aid? And also, had every improvement been done to, the vulnerable, if you have to look at the grassroots level as well?
Development is an ongoing process. No, that's fine. This development is an ongoing process, right? I don't think there's any country who has 100% grip on alleviating poverty. There's so many different issues that lead to it. It's just, institutional issues, social issues that contribute to the engendering the situations of poverty. It's cyclical poverty things. So poverty that stemmed back generations, and a lot of the mentality and the social, the environmental issues that led to it still exist. The environmental barriers. A lot of times society, when I say society, I mean a lot of the institutions that exist, they fail the people. All right, they fail the people. And so there's a sort of this cyclical poverty that exists. I can't say government obviously has efforts. You know how government resources are in terms of, especially in our developing countries, we have a lot of needs. And sometimes, as much as we definitely want to develop people, we definitely want to improve situations for people. A lot of times governments and countries are in a sort of quagmire where the government needs infrastructure, and these kind of things, but you also have to develop and think for your people. So, unfortunately, there's sort of a compromise a lot of the times, and people get sidelined because of that. We depend heavily on our international donors for a lot of the programs that we have. You understand, to subsidize, obviously our expenses and so on as a country. So I can't. It would be unfair to say that there are not efforts as to the capacity of these efforts. I mean, the capacity to actually execute and implement the programs that, and when I say we, I'm talking about us as a country, in terms of organizations, government, and so on. Our hearts are in the right place, definitely, but we might not necessarily always have the capacity. But that doesn't mean that we don't try. Right? That doesn't mean that we don't try. And you can't sit down and say honestly that nothing is being done, for poverty and for impoverished. But like I say, development is an ongoing process, and society evolves. The dynamics change. You could do an assessment and a needs assessment and so on 2 years before. And 2 years later, a lot of these, the circumstances on the ground change, and situations that sort of engender poverty, engender, vulnerability, and put people at risk, they also change. I'm sure if you look at Soufriere in the past few years, I mean, you've been down here, you could see certain social changes that comes almost as a culture shock to you. You might even question, when did this happen to Soufriere, or when did this phenomena exist, right? So, especially I know a lot of communities, they speak about not being used to certain aspects of crime and violence. Like, that was never us. You hear that in the communities, right? And those things change, and sometimes without even you realizing. So poverty is one of those issues that are complicated, and it's complex in addressing. The different root causes and so on. So, and to come up with solutions, you have to look at root causes. And it's crazy how root causes can change, depending on the situation. So, like I say, poverty alleviation is a ticklish thing, and like I say, our hearts are in the right place for the most part. Programs are in place. You mentioned earlier that issues such of monitoring and evaluation and follow-ups, and just analysis to see how the programs are performing. Maybe that is one of the things that have to be looked at for programs that exist that to alleviate poverty, the follow-up and making sure and tweaking. Because sometimes these programs are organized and it's sort of, you just want to get the plane in the air. So you give it the basic design that it needs to fly, and while it's flying, you have to tweak, but it's important that you tweak so it can maintain flight. You understand? So that is sort of a lot of our social issues. That is what it is. You come up with programs that you hope will be interventions and will mitigate in that regard. But like I say, society is evolving, and there's always constant need for revision, analysis, and and tweaking.
And we also need to look at a strong support system as well.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I would love to ask, during your tenure, what would you really like to see, or what would you like to implement? What little change you would foresee, actually?
Since I'm down there, like I said, I would really love to connect to the youth in the communities. That's one of the things. I mean, my brother and I are actually looking to, we're in this process of developing a program. It's a foundation. It's called Saint Nilla. My mother, Saint Lucia. It's a mixture of my mother's name, Petronilla, and Saint Lucia. So it's called Saint Nilla. It's a Saint Nilla project for now. Hopefully down the line we can have it established as a foundation. So we're actually tapping into grassroots, and it's a multi-developmental program that focuses on music and music production, recording, sound writing. Things that we realize when we are a lot of our youth in the country have that they aspire to be musicians. They love music. They gravitate towards it. Actually, one of the producers that's in our studio right now, his dad used to bake bread next door too before my brother moved overseas, and he used to come over and my brother taught him. And he's one of the ones who inspired that sort of thing. And we realized they're youth that are hidden, diamonds in the rough that just need to be polished and cut. And right now he's one of the best producers in the Caribbean. We allowed him to use the studio, and he's developed it. He works with Nyla Blackman and a lot of our regional artists. So, I think one of the things is to actually, for the youth, is to tap into their interests, not just impose things on them, which is why I told you that I don't want to just come and figure that the youth in Ancillary are the same as the youth in Soufriere. The youth in Soufriere are the same as Choiseul. assessment is a large part of being making sure that whatever is implemented is relevant to the community. So that is one of the things that, like I say, I'm on ground and assessing. I heard, I was told even at Palmis there are some guys over there. The producer from our studio told us there they got some guys over there, some youth over there who are actually into music, and I think they have a small studio set up there as well. You know,
Right in the middle of the beast.
right?
Yes, we do.
you know,
On the Brain Family Records label, and there's also the BFT guys
R-
in Paris as well.
exactly, exactly, exactly.
I'm the only female in part of that
Oh
industry as
wow,
well.
okay.
We will discuss more of the record. Also, I have my young minds in terms of the PAB. We had that discussion as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
We have a work plan actually for 2025. We're looking to execute with exhibitions and different things. So
Wonderful.
letting them harness the
Won-
talent.
Right.
One of the things that we can look at.
Definitely. Like,
Meeting with Mississippi Leads.
I would love that. I would love that because, like I tell you,
Ideas a day and everything else.
right? Because, like I tell you, that is part of the reason that we are so keen on having organizations develop but and and recognize, because then it assists our job on the ground. And like I say, we're able to look through the lens of the people of the community when we do it like that, and we're working, allow the people to voice their concerns and know that whatever we implement, it comes from the hearts of the people and not from our own whims. you know
So you
so
and I will definitely be working.
for sure, and I look forward to it. So, like I said, that's one of the things. Tapping into the youth. I've been speaking to Arthur, musicians from the community, Arthur Allen, some of the other guys, Manas, and so on. So I want to connect to these people and look at what programs we can implement. Like I say, for as it tapping into the music and the arts and that potential in the youth. Because one of the aspects of positive youth development, I think where the youth get failed a lot, is that they're branded and labeled from early. Sometimes, people just will come to a community sometimes and just attach labels without even knowing the people. And positive youth development, what it allows you to do, instead of identifying youth by the negative attributes, or you identify them by the potential and the positive attributes, things that you can work on and develop, and have them become, contributing functional members of society. Because you have to build morale. If you make a young person feel like they're worthless, or they'll internalize these things. And that's what, that is the effect of labeling. So it's always good to have sort of positive regard and recognize the positive in the youth and your community, and that just that outlook already sets you in motion, for like development and positive
I agree
positive
fully
changes.
with you, but they also need to be their own driving force as well.
Mhm.
Input versus output.
Right.
No matter how discouraged you are or what society,
Mhm.
the amount of blows that you get, you
Mhm.
have to stand firm and know, okay, you can dust yourself up and
Mhm. Mhm. Right.
show your talent, because at the end of the day, we all have talents as well. And
Yeah.
people will always talk.
It's true.
There are persons who thrive at destroying your image.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
then
Mhm. You see,
you can always rise from the ashes like a phoenix.
yeah,
Rise from
it's.
the ashes. And again, is the support systems that we
Mhm.
need to come to
Mhm.
to aid us, um, to hear our pleas more or
Mhm.
less, and see how best
Right.
motion can be put forward
Mhm.
for the benefit, because the developments, positive or negative, would not only implicate the individual but the whole community as well.
Right. So that is why too the community has to be part of has to be on the ground as part of development. It has to be action on the community level, because you find a lot of people, what they do, they say, Phoenix, these kind of situations and that kind of thing.
That is being transferred to the schools. So different teachers are adopting that very same
Yeah, right.
actually
That
telling the children.
that exactly. So that is why I said positive regard. Positive regard is important,
It is.
right? Because you get even us as adults. I mean, if you're in a relationship, whether intimate or whether just casual relationships or relationships with friends, I mean, you will not somebody's like one of the ways that we learn about ourselves is from the impressions of other people, from the input of other people. We can't just, it would be egotistical to just think that what we think about ourselves is completely and ultimately who we are. We find out stuff about ourselves through other lenses, through the way that people look at us, and what they how they evaluate us.
But some people sell us a false life.
It's true. But I mean, despite that, that's life. That is one of the lenses of getting to know yourself. It's not just through your own self observation and self reflection, but what other people consider about you. So you can't just totally negate it and say, well, it doesn't matter, because, like I say, we are human beings. We do we respond to stimuli, right? Even if you want to play like you're ignoring it, it still does something to you internally. So that is one of the things we have to be very careful. And that is why a lot of people we focus on inclusivity, because there are a lot of groups that get marginalized and excluded just because of simple things. And there's so many different factors and elements that cause exclusion, just because of where you think the person is from, who their family at, the color of their skin, you know. There's even you'd be surprised that even underprivileged among underprivileged people, there's even exclusion within them, because one feels that they're better than another person, because of just simple issues. And you'll be surprised how easy that is to demotivate somebody who wants to access a program, where the youth who figure, these people are not going to accept me because they think I'm this and that kind of thing. And it happens a lot. So we have to, like I say, we have to be very careful not to just sort of chastise youth and say, well, boy, they're this and they're that, and because they're developing, and we adults make a lot of the same errors, because, like I say, at the end of the day, we're the same construct, we're made of flesh, blood, and conscience, mind, and we react to things. As much as you may grow, and then you may know how to, you may employ conflict resolution and self-intervention, but it's a process. Not every people are not just born with that inheritance, especially not the youth, so they have to be guided.
Oh, how I would love to keep it up until midday. But it's now 10 minutes moving up to the hour. It's been interesting.
Definitely. So I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this.
And we have to know there are pillars here, support pillars.
Definitely.
Mr. Deterville as well. Feel free. And of course, this is an opportunity as well for persons to where can they reach you, means of contact.
Right. You can feel free to reach out. Okay. What I will do, what I would advise, like I said, I work closely because those are my work colleagues. We fall under the same ministry and umbrella. So seeing that I don't have an actual permanent office space yet, I can give a contact number, and feel free to reach out at any time. My number would be 727-2912. That is 727-2912. But if you want to reach me, for some reason, because we had meetings and workshops and these kind of things, you're not able to reach me at the point in time, you can also check one of my colleagues, especially Ms. Renita Baudiamet at the SSDF office, at Equity. They actually share a building with you, right? The Peter Management. So you can contact my colleague, Ms. Baudiamet, and she would pass on the message to me, and whether you can give her the phone number, and I will definitely reach out. But don't be afraid to reach out. Like I say, 727-2912. And let's see. Like we say, we can't solve every problem ourselves. We might, but we all, the networking and collaboration. And we would refer people to some place where they could get some resolve. So I wouldn't just tell you, "Masav about sa, ma connect about sa," and chase you. We would find some way to work towards it and connect the dots.
Before we close, let's say good morning to Alexia Alcender. Thank you so much. She asked, what are the biggest challenges and strengths you've observed in the community thus far?
One of now I always wanted the opportunity to speak on this, right? And that's a Soufriere people thing, right? So I hope people don't look at me the wrong way for that. Don't get vexed with me for that. One of the things, and part of our job is bringing communities together, right? And it's not comical. It's called giggling. And I know there's not any sort of deeply entrenched vitriol or hate. It's just a sort of what do you call it? Territorialism. So you find Soufriere Town and Fosse Jacques. There's also always seems to be this sort of level of competitivity and which is fine in certain elements, but I just like I say, that's my only concern, that when I'm deciding, when there are programs and stuff that we want to bring a lot of the communities together, that the sort of rift and that that competition is healthy, but it doesn't it doesn't permeate and it doesn't affect or compromise any of the programs, because like I say, it's our work community development, it's crucial to have all community actors involved. You have to have a picture from every aspect, every corner of the community, every social strata, every, you know, from different scopes and from different lenses. So it's important that the people are willing to come and work together. And like I say, it's not a challenge, but it's sometimes I chuckle at it because, I say to myself, well, I hope when things are being implemented and the people have to come together, that it's not an issue. But I mean, for the most part, like I say, I've seen the interactions on the ground, and it's not any sort of deeply entrenched vitriol. And a lot of the challenges in the communities that I've faced, persons from the community have been willing to assist me and guide me, and so it's not, like I say, these are all opportunities for me, and I'm enjoying it so far.
So, Mr. Sendo, your concern has been addressed or more or less answered. At this time, I will really want to know your mantra, a quote. Leave us with, what works for you on a day-to-day. For me, I can do all things for Christ that strengthens me.
You just took my mantra.
That's really?
Greater is he who is within, and that's what I always tell myself, because you'll be faced with all sort of obstacles out there, right? And I mean, attached to that, greater is he who is within. There's a lot of like I say, faith. Faith is really, what keeps me. And one thing I tell myself on a daily basis: yesterday is not today, and today is not forever. So we're not. Everything passes. We're not stuck in a constant state of whether it's frustration or whatever. And we have to look forward to better things. And that's why I say, greater is he who is within me. Because the world will have its challenges, it has things, but you have to have that faith that you can persevere, resilience.
You're welcome to do your shout outs.
Generally, I just want to shout out the community. Like Miss Hippolyte reached out a little earlier, Melanie. Like I said, Mr. MacArthur Philip from Choiseul. Shout out, the whole Soufriere Development Foundation, PMA, my colleagues at Equity, and just the whole Soufriere people in general. Like I say, thank you for having me, and I'm really looking forward to interacting with you as I spend time on the ground. Thank you.
Definitely. 3 minutes to the hour. This is where we say thank you so much, Mr. Deterville. It's been an interesting conversation. However,
Definitely.
you will be back here. This is not your first. To
Will.
those of you who are sending your comments, thank you so much. We do appreciate that as well. Online, thank you too. And not forgetting Radio Land, thank you. It's been immense pleasure. However, we have a second part of house guest, Mr. Marcus Mufasa Joseph. He is going to be here at the top of the hour. Stay blessed. Have a productive one. Keep tuned to the dial. We're here.